Hi, this is Brisson. You're listening to the Predator and Prey Yautja podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special bonus. Are we calling these bonus? I don't know. A special episode of Predator and Prey. We are a Yautja podcast, and we were just off air discussing how we didn't know how to say that until recently. But I am one of your hosts, Russell, and I am joined with Justin the Owl. Hi, Justin.
Hello, Russell.
And of course, our hunter from down under, Ray. Ray, how are you doing, Ray?
Very own Feral. Hello, everyone. There you go. I can't wait for the show to start.
We have a very special guest today. Joining us is the writer of Marvel's new Predator comic, Ed Brisson. How are you, Ed?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Very excited to have you on, Ed.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're very happy to have you, and we're so gracious that you were able to find the time to join us on our silly little podcast endeavor. Well, first off, I guess for those who are unfamiliar or maybe don't know the scope of your work, Ed, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got into comics?
So I've been working in comics professionally, I guess, like in terms of getting paid for doing comics for about 10 years. I first broke in over at Image. I did a book called Come Back, Sheltered, The Violence, a few others, and I'm blanking on them right now. So I did stuff at Image and then started at Marvel regular in about 2016, 2017. I had done a few things for Marvel here and there. Before that, I'd done a couple things for DC in 2015. And these days, I am primarily, I've got Predator going on at Marvel. I'm doing Deathstroke Incorporated over at DC. I've got a Batman Incorporated series coming up at DC. I've got a creator-owned book called There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd that's coming out through Aftershock. And
Nice.
But a million things in the works right now.
Yeah, I would say I'm most familiar with Iron Fist and the unfortunately short-lived Ghost Rider run.
Yes.
I was really
Yes.
enjoying that.
Yeah,
Me
much
too.
too short.
Yeah. Well, I think Ed, just sticking with that Ghost Rider, what really impressed a lot of people, and we're friends with Inner Demons. It's a Ghost Rider podcast as well.
Okay.
Absolutely massive fans of the character. And what really impressed the hardcore fans was just your attention to detail, respect for the source material, those sorts of things, which sometimes writers, I guess they either go one way or another. They branch out and they go for big swings, or those that actually go for something really innovative, but at the same time just really respect the source material. And that was really quite impressive. I thought the same with Iron Fist as well.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, well, I grew up big fans of both Iron Fist and Ghost Rider. The Ghost Rider book, I sort of lobbied Marvel to give to me because I desperately did want to write that book, and I spent a long, long time researching before I jumped on it and started writing it. We made, I think, a couple minor changes and stuff like that, but for me, it's always exciting to sort of stick with what's there and try and find something exciting and something new, within the parameters of what's already sort of been established, rather than just breaking the toys and starting fresh. And there's people who can do that, who can break everything and start fresh and do something brand new. That's pretty exciting. But for me, I generally like to sort of play in the same sandbox I sort of grew up reading about, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Ray, do you want to move on to the why we're here?
Let's get into the nitty gritty.
I figure we can we'll ask the questions that we actually put in the prompt sheet, if that's how you want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we just bounce off them as well. I'm sure it'll be fun. Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
So I think you're up first, Ray.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of and this is doubled up with one of our listeners as well. So Ryan from across the Bifrost. He asked, and I guess I wanted to ask as well, your introduction to the Yautja, to Predator. Where did you first come across him? Like, what are your favorites? What are your earliest memories of the Predator franchise?
Sure. For me, I saw the first Predator film at the drive-in when it came out in '87.
Nice.
So nice. I think like opening week even, and I was completely obsessed with it from the get-go. You know, I was already a pretty big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan back then. I think every kid in the '80s, it was sort of a requirement that you were. So that was, my first exposure was, its first time up on the screen.
Yeah,
I was a huge fan. Back in elementary school, I used to write what would be called fan fiction these days. Stories about Predator, Predator versus Terminator stories. And I kind of followed it throughout. I read the original Dark Horse comics when they first came out.
Nice.
Predator 2 I saw in the theater when it came out. I've been on podcasts in the past defending Predator 2.
Yes.
Can I ask? Yeah, sorry, Justin.
Oh, we're all big fans of Predator 2 here as well.
All right, awesome.
All three of us. Yes, big time.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, Ed, I just wanted to ask because we discussed in our last episode our origins for Predator and getting into the franchise. What was your impression after watching Predator 2 in the cinemas? Because I had the same experience watching it in the cinemas, but I came out kind of disappointed, but I've learned to actually really love it since then.
So I liked it quite a bit on like first blush. Like I enjoyed it. I think over time, my opinion has changed a little bit. I think there are some definite misses in the film, but I think it does a lot of really interesting stuff and does try to sort of expand on Predator lore. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that looking back on it, that maybe my biggest complaint would be like Danny Glover's character is pretty cliche and pretty paper thin, and he's just that typical sort of cop that's not listening to the sarge, and like that's in every second movie that came out at the time. Right. And I wish that they would have just actually developed him more. I know a lot of people complain about the idea that they go from like Schwarzenegger to Danny Glover as the as a main antagonist, but I don't mind that. I feel like it's interesting to see people who you wouldn't necessarily think could go toe-to-toe with the Predator being able to pull it off.
Right.
So and over the years I've learned a lot of stuff that it feels like there's some missed opportunities. One of my favorite like little bits of trivia about the second Predator movie was that they were waiting to see how well the comic did.
Oh, really?
Greenlighting the second film, they're like, "Well, the comic sold well. Let's."
Oh, right.
I've never heard of Hollywood waiting on comic book sales before greenlighting a project. And I like the tie to the comic. At the end with the pistol. And originally Gary Busey's character was supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right?
To be the expert who knows about the predators and stuff. So that was the thing that would have been great to see back then. But no, I think it's a fun film.
Yeah, no, it certainly has. For me, it's like wine. It's kind of really my love for it has just grown as the years go by. Because to be fair, I didn't really. Maybe it was the expectations of wanting Arnie in the second one, and that didn't happen. Sure. And as a youngster, but by all means, yeah.
I mean, I saw Predator 2 first, so that one is really sentimental to me. I still would say the first one is better, but the second one's very near and dear to my heart, and it's so wild. Like it is just batshit insane from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It's very entertaining.
Yes. I mean,
I feel like sometimes though, like your first exposure to something is always going to be almost your favorite, or it's always going to hold that place in your heart.
right.
There's so many times where I've seen Aliens. I saw before I saw Alien, and still, so for me, Aliens is the one I think of.
Yep.
When people talk about the franchise.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't watch Aliens Resurrections first. Otherwise, that would be my sentimental favorite. So.
I worked in a theater when that one came out, and I was pretty bummed out about it.
Yeah, it was a bit odd. Well, I mean, so speaking of the movies, obviously that's a main gateway as well. Are you a fan of any of the other things like the action figures or the gaming? Like that's
so I've never played any of the video games. I feel like I'm going to go back and do them, but up between. I kind of hadn't really played a lot of video games up until COVID started. COVID started, and a lot of my work sort of dried up, or like my workload was suddenly much less, and I decided to get back into playing video games. And I think Last of Us 2 was the first game I played at the beginning of the pandemic, and I beat that. And that was the first game I'd beaten since Super Mario Brothers 3. And when that was new, right? When that first came out. So that's how long and how many video games I'd missed. And I think all the Predator games kind of came in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I think there's a newer one, right?
There is.
Hunting Grounds or
something? that one's only multiplayer, so that's probably not the best one to play. Right. But it's fun. I mean,
all right.
Yeah. You can probably get it on sale too.
Perfect.
That's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But but action figures, Ed. I mean, like Justin, Russell, and I we're always fawning over beautiful figures.
So I don't have any right now, but I do plan to. You can't really see the shelf up here because it's just off panel. But I usually buy an action figure. This is the way I keep myself in check. Of a character that I've written.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice. And so I have a space up there for Predator. I haven't.
Fantastic.
And I've been looking at them. It's a weird because I only want to get one. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, nice.
So I want to make sure it's the right
there's so
one.
many to choose from.
Yeah, there's like a million of them.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm hoping because NECA makes the Predator figures that are just amazing.
Yeah,
and
those are the best.
They've made a lot of comic book Predators. I'm hoping that we see some Marvel Predators that you've created.
I would be down with that.
Yes, I've already dubbed your just jumping ahead to your series there, Ed. The Predator. I'm hoping that Predator. Well, obviously, will have a big play in it. It seems to be the main antagonist for Theta, but I've dubbed it the Maple Leaf. Predator because of the design on the top, but I can't wait to see what happens with that Predator, and I hope they make an action figure of it.
Me too.
I
a Theta action figure too.
Sorry, what was that, Ed? Sorry?
We've been calling it the three mandible Predator.
That's what I said.
Nice.
Yeah, fair enough.
I love that.
Sorry, Justin, you were saying?
I'll take action figures, Theta.
Yes, Theta action figure would be fantastic. Definitely. Yeah.
Get a ship of Sandy.
Removable helmet.
Yes.
Yeah. Justin, do you want to grab the next question?
Oh yeah, sure. So, were you approached to write Predator? Or was it something that you pitched, or was
I was approached? Yeah. So
nice, awesome.
In August, I believe, of 2020, they asked if they'd mentioned to me earlier that they were in talks to get the Predator and Alien licenses, and when they said that, I was like, Predator, like I want Predator, and I love Aliens, but like Predator, I actually had a story idea, the moment the words left their lips.
Awesome.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So
I love it.
when they asked me to pitch it, I sent them the pitch same day or next morning, and that pitch is largely what the book is. There's
Awesome.
very few changes.
Nice.
That's what it
Awesome.
was, and it was loosely based on an idea from when I was younger, from when I used to do this sort of Predator fan fiction stuff as a 10 and 11-year-old or 12-year-old, however I was,
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead, Ray.
Oh, and I was about to just quip, Ed. Well, hopefully that you've updated that old story and you don't have Alf in there somewhere. You know?
No, please put Alf in there.
Please.
And that's actually the second arc is Theta. You find out that she had a cat.
Oh.
So she's after Alf after that.
Well, then you got to do Predator versus Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So that's the pinnacle. But kind of tying into that, Ed, is we were all of us were collectively heartbroken when the series was kind of postponed, seemingly indefinitely. So. Can you describe to us what was going through your head when the property rights were kind of in turmoil and it got shelved for a year? So
so I was told it was just going to be delayed, that it was going to come out. They just weren't sure. And when that news came through, I was having like a real rough month anyway. When they said that, I was like, yeah, it was just like one more thing. I'm like, sure, why not?
No.
So I was pretty bummed out about it.
Was that around the same time as Ghost Rider's cancellation?
That was a few months, I got offered a few months later, but the Ghost Rider cancellation too was I think Ghost Rider cancellation happened right at the same time that basically our plumbing exploded.
Oh,
our whole driveway dug up. Again, it was the same, whatever. But I was pretty bummed out about it. But they assured me that it was just a delay and it would come out still. And but up until just before it got solicited, I wasn't sure when that was happening. And they called me, I think, about a month before to let me know it would be in previews. It would be coming out.
Great.
I guess, or Penguin Catalog, whatever they're using now.
Right.
But yeah, it was a bummer, and I didn't know how long it would be delayed. So, the one positive was that I think I was writing issue 3, maybe.
Yeah.
Might have just been starting issue 4 when that all happened, and I just took my time writing the rest of it. So I actually, rather than being on a monthly deadline, I was writing an issue every 3 or 4 months and just taking a while with it. Which is a luxury that's not often afforded.
Right.
And so people writing monthly books, and that was great. I like as much as possible. I'd like to be able to take time with things.
Yep.
Right.
That was going to. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, Ed, as well. So, how far do you write into it? Not knowing the future of that series, did you just? Are you 12 issues ahead or something, or how?
No. So right now, I'm 6 issues ahead, I guess.
Okay.
I've written 6 full issues.
Oh, nice.
And so it's just sort of, I have plotted out more, but it's just kind of a wait and see at this point. Hopefully it goes on for longer. But
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, cool.
It's looking good. If you look over at the Yautja's old rival, the Xenomorph, they're already in their second Marvel series now.
Yeah,
things looking up. Yeah,
absolutely. I was excited. That was the thing I was excited to launch alongside Alien, but I think it worked out the way well because we launched I think the same week. Prey came out,
that worked out really well.
Yeah, there was. It's there for. At least. That 1 week, it was Predator Mania running wild.
We were going crazy.
We had the book as well.
The book release
same week.
Eyes of the Demon. But Ed, just kind of broadly scoping, I guess now the Predator series that you're doing, on a high level, what were the opportunities that you want to explore? Now, I don't want to get in any trouble by revealing anything,
Sure,
of
yeah.
course. But what were the opportunities in exploring the Yautja universe, or potentially AVP and crossing over with aliens that you thought, okay, this is really cool. I have the ability to do this now.
So one of the things I wanted to do and want to do still, like initially, is just keep it Predator focused and not worry about crossing over right away. I think like that sort of like crossing over is, it feels like it's an inevitability. It feels like everyone does want it, but I think that really you need to be bringing these two franchises, I guess, over to Marvel. You really just want to establish them as standalone first, and really get their legs under them, and make sure that they feel like their own unique individual books,
right?
Because you don't want it to feel like one has to rely on the other to survive,
Right.
And so I really didn't. I was kind of pushing that out of my head. I didn't want to think about and like Marvel wouldn't have let me anyway. So but for me, I wanted to get like. There's a danger with the. I'm just gonna keep saying Predator because I
sure.
I know I've always been saying Yautja, but obviously like I said, it's a word I've read a million times, never heard it spoken. But I wanted to get a bit into the lore, but not too deeply. I think there is a real danger to over explaining them and giving too much of them away. I think part of the allure of them, part of the thing I find interesting, is that they're largely sort of still a mystery, right? And I think the less sort of mystique that they have around them, there's the danger that they become less interesting.
Definitely.
And because they're boogeyman, right? And like once you point a light at a boogeyman, he's not scary anymore. And so I did want to get into the thing I like doing with this is I wanted to do a series about someone hunting them rather than them, somebody stumbling across them and having to sort of defend themselves. I wanted to do a story where it's someone who's prepared for this. It's not someone, again, their first encounter with a predator, and all of a sudden they can take down as many as Theta's been able to take down. So this is like, I wanted to really push that this has been an ongoing thing. It's been sort of her entire life. It's been sort of all consuming for her, and she's got scars all over. I don't know that you can tell in the first issue unless you look closely, but she's missing one of her legs, right? Which is a result from a fight. So it's not been easy fights. So we really wanted to make sure that it felt like it's been a big thing. But, I think one of the things that the second film sort of like touched upon was the hunting schedules anyway, that they were coming to Earth every 10 years, right? And so we wanted to just go a little bit further with that and show that she's discovering their hunting routes. And it makes sense that they would be traveling around to different planets. We want to take an opportunity to show some extra other planets, which they did a little bit in Predators, or at least they showed other. Well, I guess they just showed the one alien, right? In Predators. Now I'm thinking about it, which was the original Predator. From the Sean Van Damme one. So we wanted to just like peel back a little bit. Like that was what I really want to do, was just peel back layers a little bit, but not too far. Just give Theta enough information that she could to explain how she's finding these predators, right? Like we need to make that make sense. And so I wanted to go into that a little bit. Wanted to, we have the black boxes from the ships, which is, as far as I know, not something we'd seen in any Predator media before. So that was just the things I was interested in doing, was sort of getting into this, showing their hunting routes a little bit, and showing what happens when they're disrupted, showing how they react to being on the other side, on the other side of it when they're being hunted. Those are the big things. That's what I can say without giving things away.
No, for sure.
Well, I really appreciate that one of your things was focus on the Predator, because it feels like when the conversation's always brought up about Alien and Predator, people seem to think the Predator is less than, and I always thought the Predators were cooler. So I'm happy that they're getting a little bit of a spotlight now. And I would judging by you laid it out how you wanted to keep their mystique up. I imagine that we're not going to get any books from the point of view of the Predator.
So not, not right now.
Okay.
I think it's another thing where, like, if the thing I compare it to a lot is the Halloween movies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it would be tough to do a movie from the point of view of Michael Myers, right, or the Shaker.
Right. Yeah.
And again, maybe there's a way to do it, but like my instinct right now is that it would be really tough to do that without giving too much away. That said, I've plotted out a bunch of stuff, and depending on how long we go, there is some stuff that maybe runs close to that. That's maybe not exactly what you're hoping for.
Okay.
But maybe runs a little bit close to what you're hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that talk. What you mentioned about mystique of the character and the boogeyman. Like, for me, one of the many major pitfalls of the Predator was this demystification of the character, and we end up getting like a Predator killing suit at the. I was like, what is this? Is this like Iron? Is this Iron Man? What are we doing now? Shane Black seems to have, brought his Iron Man 3 knowledge across. But yeah, no, that's great. I mean, Russell and Justin and I, we've also read into the latest novel, the anthology Eyes of the Demon, by Brian Thomas Schmidt, edited by Brian Thomas Schmidt. And yeah, there are a lot of stories from the Predator point of view. So it's very interesting. Like, I guess when I was asking that question about opportunities, like, there's so many different different avenues you can come at with the Predator, and I think it's really exciting that you've got this ability. Also, as well, you may have alluded to it, whether or not Marvel allowed you to have some sort of connection to one, I guess, the previous Dark Horse comics lore, and number two, immediately I'm thinking of that David Finch cover with Iron Man's skull, this whole beauty of the Predator now in like Disney and in the Marvel universe has this crossover potential.
So I won't say that they're not going to do that, because it feels like that
it's inevitable.
Money on the table.
Yeah.
It feels like an inevitability for sure. But I can say that right now, as far as any conversations I've had, there's no like immediate plans to do something like that. Once again, I think they really just want to make sure
they build it up.
And
absolutely.
And the better the books do, then the obviously the more excited that people are going to be down the line for Predator versus Punisher, Predator versus Avengers, or whatever it is. I think at least once a week I get pitched Predator versus Kraven. So I think that those ideas are very exciting and stuff, but I think it's almost, I feel like they got to be earned. Like, we got to just
definitely.
You got to
for that stuff.
You got to simmer a little bit,
right?
Yeah.
But if you could choose any three Marvel characters that currently exist, it could be a hero or a villain.
Okay.
Who would you do like a Predator versus of, if you could, down the line, if you could choose three?
And don't say Howard the Duck.
I think that a Predator versus a symbiote would be kind of
cool. That would be
that's Venom or if that's Carnage.
Definitely.
I think maybe like a Punisher thing. I think could be a lot of fun too, just a lot of firepower. For the third, man, I don't know. Like Predator Cable, maybe Predator Hulk.
Hulk would be great.
You'd have to get a gamma irradiated Predator to get
a big one.
Sorry, we are live streaming, so people listening on the podcast, please excuse us if we do refer to live stream stuff. We do have a live comment come in, Ed. Craig Goss says, I think a lot of the criticisms for the Predator compared to the Alien is that the Predator tends to be jobbed a lot. Like, it's very rare for the Predator to even get a Pyrrhic victory? Pyrrhic victory in a story. I mean, Ed, what are your thoughts on that? There must be really it's a difficult thing to skirt around as well, because truth be told, I mean, we haven't seen a Predator win yet. Like
and you haven't really seen an alien win yet either. Like, the alien just hangs around at the end. They're all human stories, right? They're about human victory and human, conquering these sort of immeasurable and inconquerable sort of threats. I would love to do a book about predators wiping out. I don't know, whatever. But you just lose your sort of your focal characters, right? It's harder for an audience to relate to a predator. I would say that I don't think predators get jobbed any more than the aliens do.
Yeah, that's a good, fair point. Yeah,
I would, I think the big difference between the two is like, the predator is what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're more civilized. Like they
have an honor system.
Absolutely.
The xenomorphs are just animals. They're
more insects.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think if you look at the end of Predator 2, that's one of the good one of the things I think that film does that none of the others really do.
Right.
Because there's that moment of respect between the predators and between Danny Glover, and they recognize that he won. And I think that there is like someone said, but a civility to it. There's some honor to it. I think it would be hard to have a story where our protagonist loses and gets killed by a predator. But who knows? Maybe that's how Predator 6, which is the end of our first arc. That's how that ends. You have to read and find out.
I think that's why in the AVP stories they tend to have the predators as heroes, but they're always the heroes that go down. So Well, Justin, you want to ask the next one? I know you kind of skipped around some.
Well, this kind of goes back to what we're talking about the Alien franchise. But have you and Philip Kennedy Johnson had any talks at all about later on down the road about any,
or maybe just like you guys writing these two characters in general? Maybe not crossing over, but just the process.
Yeah.
Weirdly, no. I've talked to him before.
Mm-hmm.
It was announced when I think we both knew the other had the books that they had, but we were kind of sworn to secrecy. So we didn't even acknowledge it. We talked very briefly before a panel we were on. So no, we haven't really had those discussions. And part of that might just be because
keeping them separate.
Marvel, it really just wants to keep them sort of separate.
Yeah.
And I think they've had the same editors working on both books, so I know that they're sort of just keeping track of what's going on. There's been a bit of back and forth with the editors, but that's about it.
Have you read his Alien book? Because I think it's pretty great.
Yeah, no, I think he's a great writer as well. So I'm usually down to read whatever he's writing, especially obviously Alien.
Yeah. He's doing some great work with Superman on Action Comics as well. Like a lot of really world building alien stuff, like alien stuff. But his Xenomorph stuff is really good. Is really good too. Looking at I guess your characters in the series, and we've touched upon Theta as well. It's always. I always see it as great fun reading the Predator stories because you get the colouring from the humans that are kind of in and around the actual story. As you say, it's a very human story as well. Theta's come out of the gate. She's very we know kind of what sort of character she is with a great introduction in issue 1. What sort of story are you hoping? Again, I don't want to get you in trouble, but what sort of story are you hoping to tell with her? Like, do you have bigger plans for Theta? I'm only thinking. Yeah, I'm only thinking. Sorry, Ed. In the Alien thing with Philip K. Johnson, he had this great character, Gabriel Cruz, fantastic, but he kind of. Spoilers a little, everyone. He kind of ended after the first arc. So whether or not you tell a wholesome story with a character or whether Theta is like an enduring character, I don't know. What's your take?
The hope is that she's an enduring character. She's got a lot that she's trying to she feels that she's trying to atone for. I think she carries a lot of guilt over what happened because it was sort of she was a kid, but in her mind it was her fault that she led the Predator back to the ship.
Right.
But yeah, the idea is that I'm hoping to keep that character around and sort of build upon that character. There will be,
Nice.
I don't think this is a really huge spoiler, but there will be a little bit of a like supporting cast sort of built around her. Not a very large supporting cast, but there will be other humans sort of entering the picture at some point. And some of those characters will hopefully endure for a little while as well and help sort of push the story forward and sort of help her continue this hunt for her great white whale.
Yeah.
I think she's a fascinating character, and I could be wrong, and again, you don't have to answer anything, but it seems like you've planted the seeds that like she's becoming the thing that she hates. Like, she's got trophies on her wall. She's got the Predator armor on. She's kind of becoming a Predator. And that kind of ties into my next question. Was she at all inspired by Machiko from the AVP comic?
I've never read the AVP comic,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I don't know the character, but no, originally it was just like so I'm just trying to formulate, but originally no, like she wasn't really necessarily inspired by anything,
Right.
any one particular character. I think when I first pitched on the phone to my editor before actually writing up the pitch and letting him know exactly what's going on, I think the way I told him, it was like, I have basically Punisher in space versus Punisher versus Predator, in space, like a character who's got that same sort of grief that the Punisher has, not necessarily being,
Frank Castle.
It's not being Frank Castle, but that sort of character. So there was a little bit of that DNA in it, like that sort of like almost like Death Wish style revenge type thing. But it just felt like an easy, it just felt like an organic way in to her story.
Yeah. And I really just think she's not, like, character-wise, not too similar to the Machiko character, but they are aesthetically similar. So maybe your artist was inspired by that. But
just wanted to actually chat as well. I'm sorry, Justin, if you wanted to say something.
That's fine.
Just your collaboration with Kev Walker, because I was really impressed with the artwork. I think it was really good. He draws an absolute badass Predator. A lot of these sci-fi stories and elements, there's a lot of detail that has to go visually, like the ship, the planets with the different aliens. Had you, again, just looking at your writing process and collaborating with the artist, did you have descriptions of the type of aliens they came across? Like how far into the detail do you get when you do these sci-fi kind of expansive stories?
Kev is really, that's like really where his head is at. Like when you talk about the design of the character being similar to another, in the draft of the script, the first draft of the script, she had long hair, longer hair that was always sort of tied back, which played a part in a fight that came later. But Kev's rationale was that if she's out there fighting all the time, it would be shaved head, which I absolutely think was the right call. So I think like my approach sometimes to sci-fi and to sort of descriptions and stuff is I give enough information just enough information to sort of get an artist going in terms of design and stuff like that. I don't want to, really hamper them down unless, because that's what they're sort of wanting to bring to the table. And that's where they can really shine in the collaborative process. So I can't remember what sort of description I gave for the aliens that she runs into the first issue. I think I might have described them as being like ET like in the thing. But the ship was I just described the ship as a large sort of what it had to do when it in terms of function, how it had to house X amount of people, how it was sort of built to travel X amount of distance, be used as housing for a few years, and then make the return voyage. The AI, Sandy, the AI was
I love
always
that.
in there. But Kevin, he hit me with like a million questions, like what sort of like propulsion system.
So cool.
I have no
I love it.
fucking idea, man. It moves through space, and so when I like the type of sci-fi I like, I'm not like a big guy who's into really hard sci-fi where you read the novel and there's 6 pages on the ship's cooling system and how it works. I like to have enough information in there that it works in sort of the story setting as much as I need. And so Kev is brilliant at that sort of stuff. He designed all of Sandy before drawing any of the script in the first issue. He did this giant design for the ship, the exterior and the interior, that maybe they'll include in the trade. I hope, because it's all just beautiful stuff. So awesome. For me, I get just enough information that I need for story purposes.
Yeah.
And then Kev comes in and asks all the questions that make me sound like an idiot because I don't know what sort of whatever it is. But, he's great at that. I love working with him. He always has like a ton of input.
Nice. So. Yeah. Sorry, just off the back on that as well, just because it fascinates me, the creative process, behind the scenes of comic books as well. And we've asked this with other creators that we've been able to chat with and fortunate to chat with. Editorial as well. Like, are there like particular ways that you have to direct the series towards, or are there potential edicts that they say, well, you can't do this, or actually push you towards a particular direction?
No, they're actually been pretty chill the whole time.
Nice.
I've worked on a lot of licensed comics in my 10 years of writing, and some of those scenarios can be real nightmare scenarios with licensors, not generally the editors on the comic, but when you're dealing with licensors, particularly those who don't deal with comic book companies often. There's just sort of a real lack of understanding about what comics are and the sort of what you need to accomplish and stuff, and that can cause a lot of issues. And I think they're used to when they're early days of making a film, when you make a million changes going on, you can just do changes. We've had to have discussions on licensed books in the past where we're like we literally just can't have the artist redraw the entire issue. Because of something you decided later on, right? And sometimes they just don't comprehend. 20th Century Fox on Predator has been absolutely incredible.
Fantastic.
Very, very few notes. I think the only note I can really think of is later on. I had someone use the term Yautja, and they're like, no one in here would probably know that.
Okay.
And I can't say why we're using it without really spoiling something that comes up. But someone had used it, and I think that's really the only thing that they kind of push back on.
Okay,
really, they've been actually really kind of cool. Their notes have only been helpful. They've only been sort of they're like complimentary, but also just sometimes like, what if this happened? What if like just a minor thing like in
okay.
But it's kind of cool, that I haven't really run into a ton of issues with like the technology or the backstory and stuff like that. They've been quite good. And, like I said, I grew up, watched Predator 1 about 1 million times. Predator
2. You know it inside out.
I know them quite well. So I'm hoping that's why that helps. But they've been great. It's been a really enjoyable process.
So that just kind of begs the question to me, and I it's an obvious answer, but I still want to ask it. 20th Century Fox, they just call them Predators. They don't have any name for them or anything. Just
in the emails, we usually just call them Predators.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's just easier across the board.
Right. Yeah.
And Yeah, but
'Cause
I have used the term Yautja a few times.
I would imagine that originated from Dark Horse. Maybe not.
Yeah,
but
the term
I think
Yautja,
it
yeah,
did.
probably.
Yeah,
I think it
I think you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a quick couple things, and then Justin hasn't got to speak much.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
gonna-
that's all right.
I'm just going to quickly say though that Yautja is not off the table. It was just off the table for this
okay.
Okay.
particular
Okay.
part. It's not a thing that they don't want to use. It was just specifically for this scene.
Okay.
I feel like, and again, I don't work for Marvel. I mean, I'd love to, but I think the Predator is a prime candidate for a Black, White, and Blood comic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would you? I mean, I don't know if you would do that and the ongoing at the same time, but do you have any like short story Predator ideas that you would throw into a Black, White, and Blood?
Possibly, probably. I would have to sit down and really think about it because it's like 8 pages. That's really tight and really tough.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how hard it is to sort of write an 8-page story and make it feel worthwhile. But yeah, I'm sure that I would have an idea for that, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that question as well because we know that you've done Deadpool, Black, White, and Blood, and just the shorter format. I mean, you've answered it already, but it's such a different thing, I guess, as a writer to try and truncate or to tell a whole story in such a limited space.
I started when I started out writing. When I quit, I self-published for a long time. I wrote and drew and all that sort of stuff, and then when I stopped drawing and all that. And decided I just wanted to be a writer. I started out with just 5 to 10 page stories. So I have a lot of background writing short stories. I love writing short stories, but they are exceedingly difficult to pull off in a real satisfying way.
Yeah, right. Justin, do you want to?
Justin?
Another question from the list. Do you have if you had to choose one favorite Yautja? And it could be from the movies, it could be from the comic books, it could be from wherever. Who would that be?
I think I would just go with the OG from the original film. I think, as terrifying as they all are, I think just thinking back to when I was a kid in the drive-in and seeing that mask come off, and something I actually haven't talked about this a lot, but the drive-in theater in the city where I lived when I was younger, where my house was, I could actually see the drive-in screen from my back window.
Oh,
nice! I love it.
So I would the entire week that Predator was screening, I had these cheap little binoculars.
Oh, I love it.
Watching it and that scene, when you first reveal the face, that still sort of sticks with me. So
and the makeup. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I would go with that one just for the for me for that initial impact.
To me, that makeup has never been topped.
It's a very handsome Predator, I must say.
For some reason they never nailed it quite as good again with the animatronics and the look. And
It's true. It was the best looking one of them all.
Yeah. I was just going to say also, Ed, just, a young Ed with binoculars looking at the drive-thru, and there's Sally across the road going, "Mom, Ed's peeking out the window again."
Different kind of Predator there. I'd agree. Jungle Hunter is great. I mean, he can take out a crack squad, with a sliver of equipment, because you've seen AVP and the amount of weapons that they have there, they're kind of lugging 50 kilos of stuff. I like him. I do like Wolf, though. I tell these guys, Russ and Justin, I do like Wolf, although I get berated for loving Requiem. Just because you can't see it.
Exactly. You need night vision goggles to watch that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ed, actually, maybe before, because I wanted to go into just a little plug for Predator 2, but before that, we've just got a couple of bits of feedback that we got from some people. So,
and I found the one we were looking for.
Excellent. Excellent.
Oh, nice.
So just quickly, I guess this one's not really related, but I'll do this one. Justin, if you can do the one that's directed towards Ed. But the first one's from Brian Thomas Schmidt, who's the editor of that novel Eyes of the Demon. Just from the back of our first episode, he said, you guys missed some Easter eggs in Aftermath, but glad you loved the novel. First, the tapes from Hunting Ground are part of the dialogue and story. I didn't pick that up, so thank you, Brian. Also, Johnny Ortiz is young in my story, older in Briggs's. I didn't. Did you guys reckon?
I didn't pick up on that.
I didn't realize that as well.
Yeah.
And what is this? Is this an American term? And I tuckerized?
I've not heard that.
I haven't heard that
no.
either. Yeah.
Okay, well, he got tuckerized, and
Tuckerized.
and also 4 other fans, including they wrote in some fans, which was a really nice touch as well. But yeah, Justin, have you got that other one there for?
Yes, this is from Joshua Pruitt, and he asks, as a fan, what was something Predator-y that you couldn't wait to write for this character/world? And as a writer, was there anything you wanted to challenge yourself with or specifically set out as a goal with when it came to Predator and its lore and history?
So really, the thing I couldn't wait to get to was just writing a Predator scream.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
As dumb as it is, but you always want to, again, try to recapture that moment where the helmet comes off and there's a scream. In terms of challenging myself, I'm not typically a sci-fi writer. So I tend to write a lot of, more grounded stuff. I write, when I was starting out, I was writing a lot of crime fiction. And so it's very grounded, and it's very about the person and sort of what they're going through. So, to try and write obviously I've written superheroes and stuff over the years, but just to try and do this really big sort of sci-fi epic, hopping planets and sort of stuff. So I'm really trying to push myself to make that feel real, feel authentic, and not lose the sort of stuff that I like writing as well, which is a crime, which feels grounded. So trying to do these two things and find a balance between that, while not without disservicing the other.
Yes.
That was my big push.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I'd add that Joshua, he wrote a story in that Eyes of the Demon so he's familiar with the Yautja as well. Last question from our feedback from I apologize if I say this wrong. Kamose Mills. We were looking for this earlier and we couldn't find it. I finally found it. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but how did the Prey movie affect your comic, if at all?
So in terms of what's in the comic, it didn't, because I was already, well out of the gates before I even knew what the Predator or what Prey was going to be about. I think I was on issue 2. I might have been writing issue 1 when they mentioned, one of the studio feedback I think was funny that I was doing a female-led book set, in the future where they had a female-led a film set in the past. Those two things weren't planned. Back then, I think the film was just called Skull or Skulls.
Yeah,
I can't recall. Yeah. But I didn't know much more than anyone else about the film. I only watched the film for the first time about 7 or 8 days ago.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I was on a road trip / signing tour. Just over a month when it came out, and I didn't want to watch it on a crappy hotel TV. So I waited till I got back. I thought it was really great. I thought it was interesting. I like that they. I think that the films sometimes they try and go bigger and bigger and bigger with each new thing, and it feels like they really just sort of got that you got to kind of contain it, and bigger is not necessarily better, and it felt like a really cool I thought it was a really cool film. I really enjoyed it quite a bit, and I liked the different look to the predator.
Mhm.
I'm blanking on what they call it. What that predator's name is? Is it feral predator?
Feral.
The feral
Feral,
predator.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a surprising look that I wasn't expecting. I still prefer the 1987 Predator look,
Yep.
but I think that's cool that they're still pushing in different directions. And obviously, then there's likely story reasons for why that happened. I do like that we got that connection to Predator 2 as well. I don't want to get too deep into without spoiling it for folks. Although I think it maybe breaks the other connection that Predator 2 already had with that same scene.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I thought there was a lot of I thought it was smart. I think they really sort of honored what the original was, and I hope we see more in that sort of vein. These more sort of smaller story, not necessarily smaller stories, but more contained.
Right.
We don't have to explain everything. It's just this thing that's happening, and they got to deal with it.
Right.
Absolutely.
I would you. I mean, do you have any idea how well the first issue is sold? I mean, like I said earlier, Predator Mania was running wild when that came out. So
I do know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Okay. No worries. No.
I'll say that it's probably the highest selling book I've written.
Oh,
yes.
So that's something. So it's sold well. They're happy with how it sold.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. That's good. That keeps us happy. Well, Ed, a huge thank you for jumping on and chatting with us about the series. Before we get into any shout outs or plugs that you'd like to give, I just want to make the listeners aware that Predator 2 will be out September 14th, as far as I know, from League of Comic Geeks. Ed, unless there's a delay, right?
I honestly never know until people start poking me on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
We write the things and then they go out, and I'm aware of when my scripts are due, but I'm almost never aware of when actually something is coming out on shelves.
Okay.
September 14th sounds amazing. Sounds great.
September 14th, not that long to wait. Now, I'm just going to add to the stream here. So what we got, it's obviously written by Brisson, Kev Walker on art. We've got the cover by Lionel Francis Yu, and there are a few variants. So we've got some beautiful variants here. Natasha Bustos, and also I'd have to say one of my favorites.
I love that.
Salvador LaRocca is giving the other.
Fantastic.
Something about Predator being in snow is just awesome.
I agree.
It's like he's on Hoth. He's on the planet Hoth.
He's hunting wampas.
Other than Alien versus Predator, it's always hot, right? It's always
right.
Exactly.
Jungle anyway. And
there was Ray's favorite Dark Horse story, Cold War.
Oh my God, no. That's not. I didn't really like that at all. Anyway, so the solicitation says Theta Crash lands on a tundra planet, and her odds of surviving are looking slim. Her only hope is to trek through the wilds to the nearest outpost, but the cold isn't the only thing she has to worry about, as a predator watches in the shadow ready to strike. So can't wait for this.
Spoilers galore there.
We do have. I mean, this was released online, so I'm
I'm
assuming
not saying. I'm not blaming
Oh
you
no!
guys.
Oh no! I mean, I've got some preview pages. So they don't have the bubble, the word balloon. Sorry, at the moment, but we can see some nice visuals here as well. Nice and cold. There's a beast there.
That is a wampa.
So she encounters some trouble there, Jimmy Theater, and then we got a dream. It looks like a dream state there, which is pretty cool. The art's looking great. I love this. Francesca, I think is the mum's name. She looks terrifying, and we get some more aliens here as well. So looking good. Cannot wait. Ed,
I'm excited for this.
Looks fantastic. But any plugs that you would like to share?
We have Predator. We've talked about it, so everyone knows about that. I have a book, Create Your Own book that I mentioned earlier on. That's still coming out. Issue 2 came out. I believe issue 3 is on September 14th. So hey, when you go into the store to pick up Predator, check out There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd, which is a
nice
great art book I'm doing with an artist named Gavin Guidry and colorist Chris O'Halloran. It's about a kid who could telepathically control people and is making them commit crimes that he benefits from. It's a very cool sort of crime story with some supernatural elements into it. I'm really proud of it. So, if you're in the shop anyway on September 14th, maybe pick up the first 3 issues of that. Awesome. And then I've got Deathstroke Incorporated, which is coming out right now. I'm not sure when the next issue is out, but we had a pretty great issue of Deathstroke versus Green Arrow, which is sort of full issue race style fight between the two of them. That was a lot of fun to write.
Nice.
And then people can look out for Batman Incorporated, which is coming out in October, which sounds like a far way off, but is really, I think, only about 5 weeks away.
Yeah, that's coming up quick.
Can I, real quick, I forgot to ask this. Can I just get this in real quick?
Yeah.
We won't keep you anymore. So if you could write any other horror sci-fi like licensed character or series, who would you pick? I mean, you mentioned Halloween earlier. That got me thinking about it.
So yeah, I grew up a massive, like I'm still a big horror fan. I grew up like massive horror guy, and see, it's tough because comics for doing horror, like straight horror, like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, is really tough because the cinema, you really almost rely on a sound design to really help push that.
Yeah.
I would love to do, it's maybe not necessarily that. I would love to do like a Twilight Zone. Giant Twilight Zone fan. And I love the idea of being able to just write a story and it's done, and then you can just kind of move on.
Right.
Yeah.
That I've always thought, just for like an anthology book, the perfect horror character would be Wishmaster.
It's been long since I've seen Wishmaster.
Yeah. just a different wish every story, and we see how that folds out. But that
would be a good one.
That's all I wanted to add.
No, and you got me thinking now. I'm trying to figure out if I gave the wrong answer from my own point of view. But yeah,
I can see Phantasm being a good comic book too.
Yeah.
Phantasm would be interesting because it's such a weird,
weird
franchise, right? And I think that you could do a lot of really cool and strange stuff with it.
Seems like the only horror franchise that has like had longevity in comics besides like Alien and Predator is probably Evil Dead, because Dynamite was doing a lot of stuff with Evil Dead.
That's true.
Yeah, it did.
I guess, has anything else really come out as a horror comic? Like, I know there was briefly a Friday the 13th series.
Briefly a Halloween series too.
Was there?
Yeah, it's really hard to find now.
Right, okay.
I think they did Jason versus Leatherface one time.
They did. Right, yes, they did that.
Oh, and they did Freddy versus Jason versus Leatherface versus Ash too, right?
Yeah.
I think they did Ash and Darkman versus
Darkman, love him.
Yeah,
Darkman would be great. Darkman is literally just a comic book, so comic character, so that won't be good.
I guess the only other thing, and it's debatable whether you count this as a horror character, but Godzilla. I mean, he's had a ton of comics, but
there's plenty of comics. I've never really been able to get into Godzilla or King Kong. I don't know what it is. I can't get into the giant monsters.
That last movie was pretty cool. So
it was good.
I love Skull Island though.
Skull Island's good as well. Yeah. Well, Ed, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, you can check our show notes again. We'll post all the links there for Ed's projects up and coming as well. Also, as well, listeners, you can catch us.
Look at that.
I did my homework. You can catch us on email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Just check our show notes as well for all of that too. Any final thoughts, Justin, Russell, for Ed before we sign off?
Thank you for joining us, and I loved that first issue, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Me too. Very excited to see what's coming next.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Ed. And as we say, as always, shit happens. So, good night, everyone.
See ya.
The Predator is the property of the Disney Company, with affiliated characters, stories, and events of the film, comics, novelizations, and merchandise copyrighted to their respective owners. Material used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only, under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information, and opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners. Over here, over here, over here. Turn around, turn around. Want some candy?